help aspiring cybersecurity professionals assess their cybersecurity skills. Whether you're just starting out or looking to advance your skills, this question and answer session aims to provide insights to support your journey. Question 1. What is the CIA triad in cybersecurity and why is it important? Answer. The CIA triad consists of confidentiality, integrity, and availability. It's essential because it provides a framework for evaluating and implementing security measures to protect information assets. Question 2. What is the difference between symmetric and asymmetric encryption? Answer. Symmetric encryption uses the same key for both encryption and decryption, while asymmetric encryption uses a pair of keys, a public key for encryption and a private key for decryption. Question 3. Explain the concept of a firewall and its role in network security. Answer. A firewall is a network security device that monitors and controls incoming and outgoing network traffic based on predetermined security rules. It acts as a barrier between a trusted internal network and untrusted external networks, such as the Internet, to prevent unauthorized access and protect against cyber threats. Question 4. What is a vulnerability assessment and how does it differ from a penetration test? Answer. A vulnerability assessment is a systematic process of identifying, quantifying, and prioritizing security vulnerabilities in a system or network. A penetration test, on the other hand, involves simulating real-world cyber attacks to identify and exploit vulnerabilities to assess the security posture of an organization's infrastructure. Question 5. What are some common types of cyber attacks, and how can organizations defend against them? Answer. Common types of cyber attacks include phishing, malware, ransomware, DDoS attacks, and insider threats. Organizations can defend against them by implementing multi-layered security measures such as network firewalls, antivirus software, intrusion detection systems, employee training, and incident response plans. Question 6. Explain the principle of least privilege and its importance in access control. Answer. The principle of least privilege states that users should only be granted the minimum level of access or permissions necessary to perform their job functions. It helps reduce the risk of unauthorized access and minimize the potential impact of security breaches. Question 7. What is a DDoS attack and how can organizations mitigate the impact of such attacks? Answer. DDoS, meaning distributed denial of service attack, is a malicious attempt to disrupt the normal functioning of a targeted server, service, or network by overwhelming it with a flood of internet traffic from multiple sources. Organizations can mitigate the impact of DDoS attacks by deploying distributed denial of service mitigation tools, such as rate limiting, traffic filtering, and cloud-based protection solutions. Question 8. What is encryption, and why is it important in cybersecurity? Answer. Encryption is the process of converting plaintext data into ciphertext to protect its confidentiality and integrity. It's important in cybersecurity because it helps prevent unauthorized access to sensitive information and ensures data privacy, especially when transmitted over insecure networks. Question 9. What is social engineering and how can organizations defend against social engineering attacks? Answer. Social engineering is a technique used by cyber attackers to manipulate individuals into divulging confidential information or performing actions that compromise security. Organizations can defend against social engineering attacks by providing security awareness training to employees, implementing strict access controls, and establishing policies and procedures for handling sensitive information. Question 10. Explain the concept of a zero-day vulnerability and its impact on cybersecurity. Answer. A zero-day vulnerability is a software vulnerability that is unknown to the vendor or developers, and for which no patch or fix is available. It poses a significant threat to cybersecurity because attackers can exploit it before patch is developed, leaving systems vulnerable to exploitation. How are you doing so far? Question 11. What is the difference between authentication and authorization in cybersecurity? Answer. Authentication is the process of verifying the identity of a user or entity, typically through credentials such as usernames and passwords, biometric factors, or security tokens. All the permissions or privileges granted authenticated users, specifying what actions or resources they are allowed to access. Question 12. What is the role of encryption in protecting data at rest and data in transit? Answer. Encryption helps protect data at rest by encrypting it before it is stored on disk or in a database, rendering it unreadable without the appropriate decryption key. It also safeguards data in transit by encrypting it before transmission, ensuring that it cannot be intercepted or accessed by unauthorized parties. Question 13. What is a SQL injection attack, and how can organizations prevent SQL injection vulnerabilities? Answer. A SQL injection attack is a type of cyber attack that exploits vulnerabilities in web applications to execute malicious SQL queries against a back-end database, potentially allowing attackers to access, modify, or delete sensitive data. Organizations can prevent SQL injection vulnerabilities by implementing secure coding practices, such as parameterized queries, input validation, and escaping user input, as well as using prepared statements and stored procedures. Question 14. Explain the concept of a man-in-the-middle attack and how it can be mitigated. Answer. A man-in-the-middle attack is a cyber attack where an attacker intercepts and possibly alters communication between two parties without their knowledge. To mitigate man-in-the-middle attacks, organizations can implement encryption protocols such as HTTPS to secure data in transit, use digital certificates for authentication, and employ techniques like network segmentation and intrusion detection to detect and prevent unauthorized access. Question 15. What is a vulnerability management program, and why is it important for cybersecurity? Answer. A vulnerability management program is a systematic approach to identifying, prioritizing, and remediating security vulnerabilities in an organization's systems and infrastructure. It's important for cybersecurity because it helps organizations proactively identify and address weaknesses before they can be exploited by attackers, thereby reducing the risk of security breaches and data breaches. Question 16. What is multi-factor authentication, and why is it considered more secure than single-factor authentication? Answer. Multi-factor authentication is a security mechanism that requires users to provide multiple forms of verification to access a system or application, typically combining something they know with something they have or something they are. It's considered more secure than single-factor authentication because it adds an extra layer of security, making it harder for attackers to compromise user accounts through credential theft or brute force attacks. Question 17. What is the difference between a virus, a worm, and a Trojan horse? Answer. A virus is a type of malware that attaches itself to executable files or documents and spreads by infecting other files or systems. A worm is a standalone malware program that replicates itself and spreads across networks, often exploiting vulnerabilities in operating systems or network protocols. A Trojan horse is a type of malware disguised as legitimate software or files, which tricks users into installing it, allowing attackers to gain unauthorized access to their systems. Question 18. What is the concept of defense in depth in cybersecurity, and why is it important? Answer. Defense in depth is a security strategy that involves deploying multiple layers of defense mechanisms to protect against various types of cyber threats. It's important because it provides redundancy and resilience in security defenses, making it more difficult for attackers to compromise systems and data by requiring them to bypass multiple security controls. Question 19. Explain the concept of a zero trust security model and its implications for network security. Answer. The zero trust security model is an approach to network security that assumes no trust, even among internal users and devices, and requires continuous verification of identity and authorization for access to resources. It emphasizes the principle of least privilege and implements strict access controls and segmentation to limit lateral movement by attackers within the network. Question 20. What is the difference between a vulnerability and an exploit? Answer. A vulnerability is a weakness or flaw in a system or software that could be exploited by attackers to compromise its security. An exploit, on the other hand, is a piece of software or code that takes advantage of a vulnerability to carry out a cyber attack or compromise a system. This wraps up the question and answer session on cybersecurity.